and welcome, Sean. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I love doing these, and I'm so happy to be back in the hostess seat. So yeah, let's dig right in here. So can you give us a quick highlight, catch us up to how we got here today together?
Absolutely. So I am one of the more common recovering traditional financial people that have now stumbled our way into the crypto space, and very excited to be here. I spent the majority of my career with Fidelity Investments, working in particularly their stock plan services group, and more specifically in their financial reporting function. And so, which at the time was a new group within this new group. I like to say I worked for a startup within a big traditional financial space. And so that came with a lot of benefits in terms of it allowed us to operate like a startup. We got to take a lot of chances, run fast, fail fast, but still had that sort of support and comfort of a more traditional established company. But recently, a few years back, I kind of got to a point in my career where we had really reached this nice stable point in that business, and we sort of achieved what we needed to. And I was kind of itching to go out and do something new. And so I actually took a totally 180 and got into the food and bev space. I have a brother that's in the restaurant business, and we were identifying all these inefficiencies within food and bev and all these analog processes. And we realized that we could solve these with digital applications. And so we set out to begin building these lightweight mobile applications to solve a lot of those inefficiencies. And that was all going well for a year or two, but then, as we all know, COVID hit, and that was not really beneficial to the food and bev space. So while there was still a lot of opportunity, a lot of problems to be solved, it just unfortunately didn't really work well for kind of where we were at from a business perspective. And it was at that time that I was kind of looking for some new opportunities, and had been involved in crypto a little bit, had done some of my own investing in it, but just kind of dabbling in it, and was still quite novice at the time. And then a friend of mine, AJ Neri, had begun starting this company called Height Zero. And the more he explained to me about the company, more he talked about kind of what they were doing in this space, and explaining that there were all these sort of gaps currently in crypto where a lot of markets weren't yet being served. And so there was a huge opportunity to solve those needs, particularly through technology. And so, again, based on kind of my history of being sort of a problem solver and creating things from scratch, to me, it really resonated with this opportunity to start something new, but particularly in a space that was so interesting. And as you dive deeper and deeper into crypto, and you really start to understand it more as a technology and not really just as an asset, you understand the opportunity that exists in this space and what the future could potentially hold. So when you kind of put that all together, I was like, that's it, I'm in. This is where I need to be. And so that's where, for the last 2 years, I've been now working on, and it's been a great ride so far. And I'm really looking forward to what it has to offer in the future.
You're leading me so nicely into the next question. Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit more about what Height Zero does and the gap in the market that it's filling? I mean, the question is what are you creating now? But like, we know
Absolutely.
You're at Height Zero, we know you're building this, and what's that technology specifically? Yeah.
100%. So if you think from a crypto perspective and from access points, right now, or at least traditionally, the retail space was already pretty well covered off on. So if you want to go and create an account at Coinbase or Gemini or Robinhood, what have you, there's a lot of ways you can go and get access from as a retail investor. Likewise, on the far end of the spectrum, if you're an institutional player, particularly the larger ones like the endowment funds and things like that, if you needed assistance, you could go out and you could typically get some higher tiered service directly from the qualified custodians in space. But what was being missed was this wealth management advisory layer, where there weren't a lot of good access points, and in turn, a lot of good platforms that would allow you as an advisor to invest your clients' funds directly in crypto. Generally, you were left to either having to do it through some indirect exposure through things like the Grayscale Trust, some of the Bitwise products, or trying to invest in traditional securities that have heavy exposure to things like Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So like MicroStrategies, Tesla, companies of that nature. And while those solutions aren't necessarily bad per se, because they're simple, you can often achieve those through your traditional frameworks within finance, through brokerage accounts and so forth. There's definitely some shortcomings of that, where you're missing out on some of the, by not being truly correlated with the asset, you're missing out on some of the potential market opportunities. Often those things trade is at a premium or a discount, depending on which way the market's moving. There's also some inefficiencies from a tax perspective. Not to mention just the fact that if you're a believer in this space, you truly want to own the asset, right? You don't want to own some proxy of it. So creating the ability for advisors to put their clients directly into those assets is a huge opportunity, and certainly a need that, at least until recently, had yet to be serviced. So at Height Zero, we like to call ourselves, we're a technology platform. We are not a broker dealer or custodian or what have you. We're simply the piping that connects the advisor and in turn their clients to all those other services and capabilities that are necessary to gain that direct exposure.
Thank you for that. And I'm loving that you brought up the custodian piece of it, because we know we've got the central exchanges on one end, and then we've got the big players like Fidelity, Digital Asset Arm, and all this kind of stuff on the other end. But really that, and I believe it's called the turnkey asset management, but we're putting digital in front of it now for the category that you guys are falling into now. Like it's becoming a technology category in the crypto space, right?
Exactly. So in traditional finance, you had these TAMPs, these turnkey asset management platforms, that made it much easier for advisors and asset managers to manage their clients' funds. And so we're just simply trying to replicate that experience in crypto. So creating a turnkey digital asset management platform, or what we call, at least internally, a TDAMP. So yeah, it's basically a re-envisioning of an existing sort of framework or solution, just now applying that in the crypto space.
It's fantastic. No, I'm so excited to keep learning more. And we're talking about an AMA with you guys and a couple of the others in this space. And not to take this part away from you, but so part of being in the PlannerDAO community, we're all about education, collaboration, and innovation. And you're a fellow brand and media working group person here, but how are you helping to bring your superpowers to this space and this community?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we are fellow brand and media work group members, which has been awesome. So in the brand and media group specifically, our goal is to create content that can be used both internally and externally to help educate the community on crypto. So whether it's trying to make sure that the people that are already present in the DAO, trying to create content and materials that will help them continue to progress within this space, but likewise helping to get the word out to people that may not be involved in the community yet. So creating collateral that can be shared with everyone, not just the DAO members, to let them know what's out there and give them an easy access point to begin getting acclimated in this space. Often we hear, and we've talked about this, it's just, so a lot of people would love to be in this space, but it's very overwhelming to them. It seems very intimidating, especially because it's technology based, and they might say, you know what, I'm not a technologist. How could I ever understand it? Or how could I, how do I begin to learn this? So I think it's important that we create these easy access points, these easy on-ramps, so to speak, into the education portal to first let people understand how this works and really what is the value that it's ultimately delivering or has the potential to deliver. And I think once we can get them over that hump, then that's where we'll start to see the mass adoption that we're hoping for to bring more people into this space. And I think the more that come in, the better it is for everyone.
Yes, I totally agree. And especially for those of us, wink, wink, that are 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond. And we didn't grow up with the technology that our peers in the space now have. So on that note, what's one tool, person, insight that you're searching for, or that Height Zero is searching for right now? In other words, who should be reaching out to you? What do you guys need?
Yeah, so a couple things there. So first and foremost, in terms of like who we service, typically we're focused on RIAs, generally more independent. We find sometimes they have a little bit less friction in terms of bringing on some of these alternative asset classes. So sort of thinner layers of compliance and administration to work through. So it's a little easier for them to onboard these types of technologies and in turn asset classes. So certainly anyone within the advisory and really any type of asset manager or wealth manager that's looking to get exposure, direct exposure to digital assets on behalf of their client, certainly we're here to help. We're open to talking to anyone and help, whether it's just simply to educate you on the space and understand what the opportunities are, or if you're looking to then take it a step further and really put something to action. Certainly we feel that our platform offers a lot of opportunity to do that in many ways. I would say in addition to that, speaking to more of the community sense and that we're all in this together, certainly we want our system to be very open framework. So again, as we talked about, we're a technology solution. We're not a custodian. We're not a broker dealer. So we actually frame ourselves as market and custodian agnostic, meaning we can really plug and play with all the different providers out there. And so if there's other people that are interested in providing some type of service or offering within the space and they're looking for someone to partner with, we're always open to looking at partnerships and trying to make our platform as flexible and as comprehensive as possible. And so that, often means working with different solutions and different providers to ensure that we're providing the greatest breadth and depth of services ultimately to the advisor.
I love it. It's like the Zapier of turnkey asset management, like plug and integrate in on each end, and it's all going to connect together. So last question, this wrap up question, where do you see the space in 5 years and why are you so excited to be part of it?
Yeah, so I think 5 years is hard to gauge only because I think of the last year and how much things have changed so much. And it's what I love about the space, but it's also what is so challenging at times and can be frustrating is that much like the weather here in New England, just, wait a minute, it'll change. So I think in terms of trying to project out that far, I think it's a bit difficult to think about. So I try to look at more, just think of it in sort of thematics in terms of what we're seeing and hopefully maybe try to trend that out. So I think ultimately what I hope for is that we continue to see this increase in adoption and hopefully we get to a point where there's sort of a more exponential increase in the usage, because I do think that the technology offers so much more so than just as some type of speculative instrument, that there's true use cases in here that I think are going to change the way that we live and the way that we do business, and all for the better. In order for that adoption to occur, I think there's really three things that need to occur. The first is regulation. I think we all kind of agree that regulation could be a good thing if done correctly. I think in order for that to happen, I think the regulators need to continue to understand that this is a technology and not an asset. And so they really need to maybe think a little bit differently and not try to apply old ways of regulation to it. It may need to think about this a little differently. I'd say the second is education, which, things that we're doing here in the DAO, things they're doing interaccess with the CDAA, I think are huge in order to try to make sure helping more people become better educated in this space, I think is absolutely critical. And then the last thing I think is just from a technology standpoint, I think we need to get better tools. A lot of the interfaces are still somewhat rigid. If you're a technologist, it may not be a big deal, like going out and setting up a wallet and whatnot. But if you're someone that's not tech savvy, it still can be very daunting to try to get access into this space. So I think is that those tools continue to improve, those interfaces, those UXs continue to improve. That'll be critically important in terms of driving that mass adoption that we hope to see in the next few years.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sean. And I can't wait to continue these conversations. And just for all of you guys watching, listening, following, Sean is one of our awesome brand and media working group members who's behind lining up a lot of our demo AMA style events. So we're super.
Sometimes they feel like MMAs, right? So
yes, well, MMAs. Yeah, exactly. Right. AMAs, ask me anything. So definitely keep an eye out in PlannerDAO for those events as we continue to schedule out that calendar. Thanks again, Sean. We'll see you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Bye.